You know when you're watching like a truly immersive movie
Oh, yeah, totally.
and you are just completely lost in the plot? I mean, your heart is racing, your hands are gripping the armrest, you're holding your breath because the main character is like hiding from the villain.
Right. You entirely forget that you're actually just a person sitting in a chair in a quiet theater.
Yeah,
You know, you are neurologically living the danger on that screen.
exactly. But then maybe someone in the row right behind you coughs super loudly, or the theater lights flicker for a second, and suddenly you just snap back.
The illusion totally breaks.
Yeah, the illusion breaks. You realize, oh, wait, I'm just sitting in a dark room watching light projected onto a wall.
It's a really jarring shift in perspective. I mean,
Okay.
you go instantly from being lost in the drama to being the observer of the drama.
And that jarring shift, becoming the watcher of your own life is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're drawing from this extraordinary, honestly, pretty dense manuscript called The Water Remembers Nothing.
It is dense,
Yeah.
but so profound.
Right. And for you listening, our mission today is that we aren't going to get bogged down in like spiritual marketplace jargon.
No, definitely not.
We want to bypass all of that and just extract the most practical, mind-bending aha moments about the nature of consciousness and, well, this incredibly persistent illusion we call the self.
And it's such a necessary exploration because I think almost everyone carries around this nagging background hum of dissatisfaction.
Oh, for sure.
Like that feeling that something is just missing or that you are somehow just, adjacent to the life that is actually yours. And we try to solve it by consuming more information or buying new productivity systems.
Or trying to endlessly optimize our morning routines.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this because the manuscript argues that this distance you feel isn't a disease you need to cure. It's actually a massive clue.
Yes.
It's the universe tapping you on the shoulder, asking you to look again, not at your career, not at your relationships, but at the actual watcher who is looking at all those things.
Right.
And to understand why we constantly feel the need to seek out answers, the text introduces this incredible story of a man known as the Seeker.
Yeah, the seeker. He is like the ultimate manifestation of our modern urge to just figure it all out. Ever since he was a kid, he noticed that everyone around him seemed to be playing a role.
Like acting in a play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Parents performing their marriage, teachers performing authority. So he dedicates his entire life to finding the objective truth beneath all that performance. I mean, he consumes Plato, Kant, Buddhist texts, neuroscience.
Just devouring it all.
Right. He sits in ashrams, meditates in silence for weeks on end.
And the text says he builds what is described as a library on fire in his mind. He's just hoarding all this heavy philosophical knowledge. But here's the really tragic part. He mistakes the flames of that burning library for actual illumination.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Right. He thinks because he knows about enlightenment, he is enlightened.
Which ultimately leads him to a river at dawn. He decides to sit by this river and just wait for the ultimate answer to reveal itself. And he waits there for 17 years.
17 years. That is intense.
Totally. And he becomes an absolute master at dismantling every philosophy known to man. But through all those 17 years of waiting and analyzing, the river says absolutely nothing back to him.
Because the river is just being a river. It doesn't have a library. It isn't striving to get to the ocean. It's just, flowing downhill because of gravity.
Yeah, just physics.
Right. And that phrase, the water remembers nothing, it means each wave forgets the last wave. It's perpetually fresh.
Yeah.
And finally, after 17 years, the seeker is just totally exhausted. He stops interrogating reality.
He just gives up the search.
Yeah, he stops waiting for an answer. And in that ordinary moment of just sitting there, he realizes the river was the enlightenment. Because it just is.
Because he had been trapped in what the text calls the wheel of becoming, which is basically the implicit contract sold to us by modern culture and the whole self-help industry.
Oh, man. The self-improvement treadmill.
Exactly. It's this idea that you are not enough now, but if you, buy this book, master this specific meditation technique, or get this promotion, you will eventually become enough.
Right.
It frames liberation as this future destination. But from a purely mechanical standpoint, the future never actually arrives. It only ever arrives as just another present moment.
I love that. It makes me think of an analogy based on the text, like how we treat self-improvement like we're moving heavy furniture into an empty room.
Oh, yeah.
We drag in the belief in impermanence, we drag in a new morning routine, we drag in stoicism, and we arrange them all perfectly in our minds. But the actual method being taught here isn't addition, it's subtraction.
Subtraction, exactly.
Like we're trying to furnish the room, but the point is to empty it. We are literally trying to use the mind to get beyond the mind. It's like a dog endlessly chasing its own tail, thinking if it just runs like a little bit faster, it'll finally catch it.
What's fascinating here is how the human ego operates in this space.
Hmm.
I mean, when the ego encounters the teaching that the ego is the problem, the ego immediately volunteers to solve the problem.
Right. It's like, I can do that.
It thinks, I will become the best at being egoless. It's literally like taking a scalpel and trying to perform surgery on itself. It's an impossible closed loop. More was the exact thing standing in the seeker's way.
Right. So if adding all this knowledge and heavy furniture doesn't work and the goal is subtraction, what exactly are we peeling back? Because, I mean, I don't feel like an illusion. I feel very real. My anxieties feel very real. So how is this quote-unquote self actually constructed?
To understand that, we really have to look at the evolutionary mechanics of human perception. Like, your brain doesn't show you reality. It shows you a highly filtered, heavily compressed summary of reality.
Okay.
And the text breaks down this architecture of illusion into 5 reductions that happen in just a fraction of a second. The foundation, the first reduction, is raw sensation. Light photons hitting your retina, sound waves vibrating your eardrum.
And there's way too much data at that level, right?
Exactly. Millions of bits of sensory data pour in every single second. If your brain processed all of it, it would require way too many calories and you'd just be paralyzed by the overwhelm.
You just freeze.
Right. So for pure biological survival, the brain filters out like 99% of it. It only lets through what is novel or potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's the first reduction.
Then comes the second reduction, which is category. We take that tiny slice of raw sensory data and our brain instantly matches it to our memory banks. It pattern matches.
Yep.
So a curved shape on the ground isn't just visual data anymore. It's instantly categorized as a snake or a stick.
Which leads instantly to the third reduction, meaning the mind takes that category and asks, what does this mean for the survival of the organism?
Like, is it a threat?
Exactly. I mean, the exact same sound of footsteps behind you in the dark means absolutely nothing if you're walking with a friend, but it triggers a massive spike of cortisol and adrenaline if you're walking alone in an alley.
Wow, yeah. And this happens before we even have a conscious thought about it. Then the fourth reduction is story. We take those meaningful events and we weave them into a narrative to predict the future.
Right, the narrative weaving.
We say, things like this always happen to me or people are always following me. We turn this fluid, isolated biological event into a fixed, rigid chapter in our personal drama.
And finally, we arrive at the fifth reduction, the self.
Yeah.
The brain takes all those sensations, categories, meanings, and stories, and it consolidates them into a single, continuous entity that claims to be experiencing all of it.
A cohesive I.
Exactly. A cohesive I that you project into tomorrow's meetings and remember from yesterday's arguments.
So what does this all mean? Because I follow this logic. Myself, my name, my identity, my loves, my fears is just a fifth-order reduction. It's just a neurological shortcut, a convenient fiction to keep the organism alive. But wait, if that's true, why shouldn't I just dissolve my boundaries entirely? Like, if none of this is fundamentally real, shouldn't I just float through life, totally unattached, not caring about my career or my family? Honestly, that sounds like a recipe for total nihilism.
And that is absolutely the most common danger when people first encounter this philosophy. The goal is not to dissolve your boundaries and float around in some undifferentiated, mystical oneness where you don't care about your kids or your job.
Right.
That wouldn't be liberation. That would be a psychological disorder. You have to understand a crucial biological distinction here. The self is a membrane, not a wall.
Explain that difference, because a wall and a membrane sound like, basically the same thing when you're just trying to protect yourself.
Think about the biological purpose of each. A wall is a dead structure. It's designed to permanently stop things from moving. A membrane, like human skin or a cell wall, is highly intelligent. It is designed to negotiate. It isn't a solid barrier. It's a site of constant exchange with the outside world: oxygen, temperature, nutrients. In biology, the inside of a cell is really just the outside environment organized differently.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to think about it.
Right. The self is an incredibly useful, pragmatic working hypothesis that your organism absolutely needs to navigate a complex physical and social world. You need the self to remember your passwords, to feed your children, to look both ways before crossing the street.
So we aren't trying to break the machine.
No, the goal isn't to destroy the machine of the self. Honestly, you can't. The goal is to see it as a machine. You inhabit that boundary fully. You love your family fiercely, but you hold it loosely, knowing the boundary is provisional.
Okay, I get that. But it's easy to sit here in a studio and philosophize about the self as a negotiating membrane when we're, comfortable.
Sure.
But how does this concept survive the harsh, messy realities of human suffering? Because life gets really, really hard. And when you are in pain, that membrane feels like it's being ripped apart.
It does. And the manuscript actually doesn't shy away from that at all. It moves from theory directly into intense real-world application. Like, take the story of Miriam, a 53-year-old woman sitting at the bedside of her 97-year-old mother, Elsa.
Right, I remember this part.
Elsa is dying. She has lived this long, exhausting, beautiful, and tragic life. And as her body is shutting down, she looks at her daughter with this startling clarity and says, "I was never born."
Wait, really? She says she was never born after 97 years of living?
Yes. She tells Miriam that being Elsa for 97 years was just like wearing a very heavy, intricate coat. She wore it well, but now she's finally taking the coat off.
Wow.
And she realizes that what is underneath the coat isn't nothing. It is the pure awareness that had simply been watching the coat being worn for 9 decades.
That reframing just changes everything about how we view the end of life. But what about when we are right in the middle of it? There's that other story about a woman named Sawars.
Yes, the 3 a.m. back pain.
Right. She's a highly experienced meditator, so she understands all this theory. But she wakes up at 3 a.m. in excruciating, blinding back pain. She is entirely alone, and the physical agony is just overwhelming. It's the kind of pain where you can't even form a coherent thought.
Exactly. Theory goes totally out the window when the nervous system is literally screaming. But because she had practiced noticing the mechanics of her own mind, she was able to make a vital distinction right there in the dark.
Right.
She separated the raw biological sensation of the pain, the burning, the muscle spasms,
Yeah.
from the story her mind was frantically building around the pain.
The story being like, I am broken, something is fundamentally wrong with me, I'm alone in the dark, and this agony is never going to end.
Precisely. The physical pain was entirely real. It's a biological signal that demands action. But the story about the pain, that narrative of a helpless victim whose future is destroyed, that is a fifth-order thought structure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because there is an analogy here that I think gives you, the listener, a tool to actually use during an anxiety attack or a moment of deep physical pain.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Think of your fundamental awareness as a massive movie screen. You can project a beautiful, sweeping romance onto the screen. Or you can project a terrifying, violent, chaotic war movie onto it. I mean, there are explosions, people are screaming, it's horrifying. But the violence in the film does not actually burn the screen.
No, not at all.
The screen holds the image perfectly, but it remains entirely untouched by it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it introduces one of the most practical tools in human psychology, the concept of optional suffering. The raw facts of life, a kidney stone, a job loss, a freezing winter, the grief of losing someone, those are mandatory.
Right, you can't bypass those.
They are unavoidable, and they require you to take action in the real world. I mean, Swar still went to the emergency room to get treated for her pain.
Right, she didn't just lay there saying, I am a screen, I don't need doctors.
Exactly. The pain was mandatory. But the suffering is optional. The suffering is entirely generated by the story we build around the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Your awareness, that watcher inside you, holds the pain without being destroyed by it, just like the sky holds a violent thunderstorm.
Oh, the sky analogy, yeah.
The sky doesn't fight the storm.
Yeah.
It is fully present for the lightning, but the sky itself cannot be damaged by electricity.
So if I try to apply this to my daily life, well, if I realize I am the indestructible screen, or the sky, and my identity is just a coat I'm wearing, what do I actually do on a Tuesday morning?
Right.
Do I just go find a river and sit by it for 17 years? Like, how does a person who realizes they are just the watcher continue to participate in society?
Well, it grounds right back into the most ordinary actions. There's a famous Zen concept that perfectly captures this. It goes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Meaning the tasks of life do not change at all. You still have to pay your mortgage. You still have to wash the dishes, show up for your friends. The wood is the same heavy wood. The water is the same water.
Exactly. What changes is the doer. Think of the story about the mother tending her massive garden in the south of France. Her daughter asks her, how do you know exactly what to prune and what to water?
Yeah.
And the mother replies that she doesn't know, the garden knows. She says, I just don't get in the way. She isn't imposing her ego's grand vision onto the roses. She acts with the garden as one seamless biological system.
It's basically a flow state. And what struck me is that we actually all experience this naturally. We don't need to be Zen masters.
No, not at all.
The closest ordinary human experience we have to this recognition is love. I mean, in moments of genuine love, whether it's holding your newborn child or sitting with a really dear friend, the boundary between the self and the other temporarily completely dissolves.
It really does.
You aren't projecting a story onto them. You are just seeing their pure presence, and they are seeing yours. The heavy overhead of being quote-unquote you just vanishes.
It does. The self's usual frantic insistence on its own centrality just lessens. You aren't managing your PR in that moment. You're just there.
But I have to push back on this because there's a real fear here. Like, if we drop the self-improvement project, if we stop striving to become a better, more optimized version of ourselves, don't we just become lazy?
Yeah, that's the fear, yeah.
Do we lose our drive to innovate or be better people? It is genuinely terrifying to think about dropping the story of who I am trying to become, because honestly, that story gets me out of bed in the morning.
This raises an important question, and it is the exact friction point where most people abandon this inquiry entirely. They think, if I stop stressing, my life will just fall apart.
Right.
But consider what we can call the architecture of enough. Think about how much raw, caloric, and psychological energy you waste every single day trying to become enough. The enormous overhead of maintaining your self-image, defending your ego when someone criticizes you, managing your anxieties about the future, promoting your identity on social media.
It's exhausting. It is literally a full-time job just keeping the idea of me afloat.
Now imagine if all of that energy was instantly freed up. When the overhead of self-maintenance drops away, your actions do not stop. You don't lay in bed all day. Your actions actually become far cleaner and infinitely more effective.
Because you're not in your own way anymore.
Exactly. You aren't acting out of a neurotic, anxious need to prove your worth to the world. You are acting from the realization that your baseline awareness already is enough.
Wow.
The gardener in France isn't striving to be featured in a magazine as the best gardener in Europe. She is simply responding with crystal clarity to exactly what the roses need in that exact moment. Her drive hasn't vanished. It's just been purified of ego.
That is such a profound relief. To realize that your fundamental nature isn't something you have to build from scratch. It's something you just uncover. So bringing this all together for you listening, the core takeaway here is that liberation isn't a distant finish line. You don't have to earn it through suffering, and you don't have to practice for decades to achieve it.
No.
It is the simple, incredibly ordinary act of noticing the awareness that is already present inside you right now. Like, as you're listening to the sound of my voice in your headphones or your car, just notice the quiet awareness that is hearing it. You don't have to create it. It's already there. That's the whole game.
And to leave you with one final kind of mind-bending concept to mull over today, we need to look at how science currently views consciousness and what we might call the radio analogy of the nervous system.
Oh, I love this analogy so much. It completely flips our understanding of the brain.
It really does. Mainstream neuroscience operates on a very specific assumption that the physical brain produces consciousness. They view the brain like an instrument playing music. You pluck the strings of a violin, and the vibration generates the sound.
Right. Neurons fire in the cortex, chemicals are exchanged, and out pops a conscious thought. The brain creates the mind.
Exactly. But what if the brain is actually just a receiver? Think of it like a radio. A radio does not generate the music playing through its speakers. It simply picks up an invisible, localized signal that already exists in the room.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if you take a hammer and smash the radio to pieces, the music stops playing in your kitchen.
Right, the instrument is broken.
The instrument is broken. But the signal itself didn't die. The radio station is still broadcasting. The signal just no longer has a physical instrument to play through in that specific location in space and time.
So to bring us right back to where we started, sitting in that dark movie theater, when the movie ends and the projector finally shuts off, the screen is still there.
Yes.
When your physical instrument, your body, eventually breaks down and goes back, in its case, the capacity for the music remains. You are not the radio. You are the music.
That's it right there.
Think about that as you go through your day today. Notice the watcher. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.